My name is Emma, I'm 28 years old. And 6 weeks ago my mom turned to me in the kitchen and said, "You'll never be good enough, will you?" Her tone was calm, but the poison in her words was so sharp that it felt like I'd taken a physical blow. In that moment I just stood there, staring at her, because for the first time I realized that she had never seen me as an individual. She only saw me as an extension of herself, something she could control, shape, and blame when things went wrong. And that night I didn't even respond to her, because there was nothing left in me to explain anymore. But the truly shocking part was what happened next, because I had no idea that my quietly walking away would cause their lives to completely fall apart. Moving back from Seattle to Indiana was one of the heaviest decisions of my life. The small but independent life I'd built in the city slipped away from me in an instant. The creative agency I worked for couldn't survive the post-pandemic cuts and shut down. One morning I went to the office. By afternoon I was leaving with a cardboard box. Finding freelance work in graphic design was possible, but Seattle's rent was suffocating me more each day. I tried to hold on for 3 months, doing everything I could, but in the end I had to accept that I couldn't stay there. When I called my mom, her voice was cold and distant. "How long are you staying?" she asked without even saying hello. "I don't know, Mom, maybe a few months, maybe less, just until I'm back on my feet," I said. There was a silence. "Then, fine, but you'll follow the rules," she replied. Even in that moment something tightened inside me. Follow the rules? Was that something you say to a 28-year-old adult? When I got home, my dad Robert was the one who greeted me at the door. He hugged me, but it was so mechanical that it felt like he was just fulfilling a duty. "Welcome home, honey," he said, but there was exhaustion in his eyes, the kind that comes from living in the same house as my mom for years. When I went inside, my mom was standing in the kitchen, arms crossed over her chest, that familiar expression on her face, a mix of disappointment and self-righteousness. "I prepared your room." "Put your things away, I want everything done by dinner time," she said, without even a welcome home. What would you have done? Would you have turned around and gone back to Seattle, or would you have quietly followed the rules like I did? The first days passed in silence. I started waking up early every morning because I knew if my mom noticed me sleeping in, she'd make hours of passive-aggressive comments about it. Things like, "Oh, good morning, you slept so well. I'd been up since 6, but that doesn't matter to you, of course." So I chose to get up before her, make coffee, wash the dishes. I'd learned, in a way, how to become invisible. I was using helpfulness as a defense mechanism, because if I was constantly doing things, cleaning, organizing, maybe my mom would criticize me less, I thought. But I was wrong. The more I did, the more flaws she found. Comments like, "Is that how you wash dishes? You're wasting water," or "You folded the laundry wrong, do it again," became part of the daily routine. My dad was like a ghost. He went to work every morning, came home in the evening, and sat in front of the TV. He chose to ignore everything happening between my mom and me. Maybe it was easier for him that way. Maybe he'd learned to survive like that over the years. But for me, his silence hurt just as much as my mom's words, because I was waiting for him to say just once, "Linda, you're being too harsh." But that sentence never came. Jason was on a different planet. My brother had moved away from Indiana, finished medical school, and was now working as a surgeon in Boston. Every phone call with him made my mom's eyes light up. Sentences like, "Jason performed surgery today, he was so successful," or "Jason published a new article," were constantly repeated around the house. Meanwhile, I was like an invisible extra in the same home. The comparisons were made silently. No one outright said, "Jason isn't like you." But their tones, their looks, their emphases said everything. It was during that time that I noticed the digital chaos in the house. My mom hated computers. "These things are too complicated for me," she'd say, passing every problem off to someone else. My dad only knew how to use the same 3 websites. Bills weren't getting paid, emails weren't being read, bank notifications were ignored. One day I saw piles of papers on the kitchen table, bills, reminders, final notices. "Mom, what are these?" I asked. "Oh, I'll take care of them," she said dismissively, but she never did. So I took care of them. I set up online banking accounts, arranged automatic payments, organized everything. All the passwords came to me, all the notifications went to my phone. Insurance, electricity, water, internet, credit cards, everything. I create an Excel file with all the passwords, usernames, and security questions. I gave it to them. "Everything's here now, you can handle it yourselves," I said. My mom put the file aside without even opening it. "You'll handle it better, you understand this stuff," she said. I didn't realize it then, but I'd set a trap for myself. I'd become the invisible background mechanism running their lives, and my value existed only as long as I functioned. My meetings with Maya were the only times I could breathe. She was an old college friend who now lived on the other side of town. We met for coffee once a week. "Emma, this house is poison for you," she said one day. "I know," I replied, "but I don't have any other options right now." "There are always options," she said. I didn't believe her then, but now I know she was right. I kept job hunting, but every rejection made my mom's stares sharper. She didn't ask, rejected again. But the tone in her "how did the interview go?" already knew the answer. Each rejection became proof in her mind of my inadequacy, and I withdrew into myself a little more each day. One evening my mom was on the phone with Aunt Diane. I was in the kitchen, close enough to hear. "Yes, Emma's still here," my mom was saying. "I don't know how long she'll stay. She needs to find a job, but it's like she's in no hurry." The disappointment in her voice spread in waves. I couldn't hear Aunt Diane's response, but my mom's laugh was enough to tell me what they were talking about. They were discussing me, and rewriting who I was when I wasn't there. As the days passed, my mom's control increased. "Where are you going?" she'd ask before I left the house. When I said, "Meeting Maya," she'd reply again, "Shouldn't you be focusing on finding a job?" Or if I came home late, "It's past 10, what are you doing out at this hour?" I was 28 years old, but I was being treated like a 15-year-old teenager. One night I couldn't take it anymore. "Mom, I'm an adult, I don't have to report where I'm going to you," I said. Her voice didn't rise, but her eyes turned icy. "As long as you're living in this house, you'll follow my rules," she said. "If that's too much for you, there's the door." In that moment something tightened in my chest, because I knew I truly had nowhere to go, and she knew it too. It was right around then that the dinner plan came up. My mom said, "Jason's coming on Saturday, let's make a nice dinner." Aunt Diane was invited too, a family gathering, but not for me, for Jason. Everything would revolve around him again, and I'd just be the invisible server. When Saturday arrived, the house was in a frenzy. My mom had been cooking in the kitchen for hours. My dad was reading his newspaper, staying out of everything. I was setting the table, placing each plate and fork carefully, because I knew if anything was wrong, they'd hold me accountable. When Jason walked in the door, my mom's face lit up. They hugged, exchanged kind words. "I've missed you so much," flying through the air. When he turned to me, "Hey Emma, how are you?" he said, polite but distant, like I was a distant acquaintance. Yet when we were kids, we were so close. But over the years, the distance had grown. He was rising, I was falling. And now we were in the same house but in different worlds. When Aunt Diane arrived, the critical looks began. "Emma, you're still here," she said with a smile, but there was judgment beneath her smile. "Yes, temporarily," I replied. "Oh, I see," she said, but from her tone I could tell she didn't understand at all. She was just confirming her assumptions. When we sat down at the table, the atmosphere was tense. Or maybe it only felt tense to me. Jason was talking about his life in Boston. My mom listened proudly, my dad nodded, Aunt Diane threw admiring glances. I just stared silently at my plate, trying to be invisible. But then came the turning point. After my mom said, "Jason, your career is progressing so wonderfully," she turned to me. "Emma's still looking for a job, right?" The emphasis in her voice was criticism, not a question, an accusation. "Yes, I am," I said calmly. She said. Then she turned to Aunt Diane. "Sometimes people don't know what they want." And that sentence felt like an arrow aimed at me. Jason looked uncomfortable, a slight unease in his eyes, but he didn't intervene. My dad was lost in his newspaper as if he heard nothing. Only I felt the weight of that sentence on my shoulders. "Maybe some people should try harder," my mom said, this time looking directly at me. "What do you mean?" I asked. My voice was calm, but inside I was burning. "You know what I mean," she said, and in that moment something snapped inside me. All the silences I'd accumulated over the years, all the swallowed words, all the being overlooked, it all suddenly weighed down on me. But in that moment I said nothing, because I knew that no matter what I said, I wouldn't come out right. In their eyes I was already the failure, the inadequate one, the family embarrassment. Silence was safer. Dinner ended and everyone moved to the living room. I was washing dishes in the kitchen. I texted Maya, "I need to get out of this house." Her reply came immediately, "Come whenever you want." That message was the only thing that kept me going that night. The next morning something had changed. When I woke up there was a strange calm inside me, not anger or sadness, just clarity. I'd finally accepted how my mom saw me, and I wasn't going to try to change her anymore. At breakfast my mom was controlling as usual. "Did Jason leave?" I asked. Yes, he left early this morning. He's so busy, she said proudly. Then she looked at me. What are your plans? She said in a judgmental tone. I'm going to apply for jobs, I said. She said again. That sound conveyed all her thoughts. That day I did housework, but with a difference. Not to please them anymore, but for my own peace. Something had changed inside me, quietly but solidly. A few days later, my mom was on the phone with Aunt Diane again, talking about me. I don't know what to do, she's still here all the time, she was saying. As if I wasn't there. As if I couldn't hear, but I could. And every word strengthened my decision to leave. That week something happened. I got a freelance job offer, small but steady with remote work options. I accepted it. And in that moment, for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was in control of something, my own life. When I told my mom, "Oh, good," she said, but there was no joy in her voice, just surprise. Maybe she didn't believe I could succeed. But the real explosion hadn't come yet, because things were about to go rapidly downhill, and I didn't even know if I was ready for it or not. After my freelance job started, the dynamics in the house began to change. I wasn't dedicating my entire day to housework anymore. I was sitting at my laptop working, and my mom was not happy about it at all. "You're sitting in front of the computer all day," she'd say in a passive-aggressive tone. "I'm working, Mom," I'd reply. "Working," she'd say, as if testing the word. In her eyes, a real job meant physically going somewhere and being there for hours. Working from home didn't fall into the real job category for her. Every lunch break when I came down to the kitchen, a new task was waiting. "Since you're home, you can fold the laundry, or the dishes are sitting there," things like that. She acted as if I wasn't working, just idly sitting around. One day I couldn't take it anymore. "Mom, I'm working, just like you being in your office. I have a job too," I said, her eyes sharpened. "When I was your age, I was doing real jobs," she replied. And there it was again. The comparison, the devaluation. No matter what I did, I would never be enough. I started seeing Maya more often. I was staying at her place every weekend now. That's where I could breathe. "Seriously, Emma, move here. The couch is yours and we'll figure out rent," she'd say. But there was still some resistance inside me. Maybe I was still expecting something from my family. Their approval, their love, at least their respect. As foolish as it was, that hope was still burning somewhere deep inside me. Then that day came. My mom had come home early and was angry. I didn't know why, but it was written all over her face. When I went into the kitchen, she was staring at the bills on the table. "What are these?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Which ones?" I said. "Electricity bill, water bill, internet. None of them have been paid," she said. I was surprised. "What do you mean? Automatic payments were set up," I replied. "Apparently not," she said, throwing the papers in front of me. I opened my laptop and checked. There wasn't enough balance in the bank account and the payments had been declined. "Mom, there's no money in the account. That's why the payments didn't go through," I said. "What do you mean no money? I get paid every month," she said. "Yes, but you didn't control your spending. Credit card debts have piled up," I replied, because I'd set up the systems but I wasn't monitoring their expenses. That was their responsibility. "You were handling these things," she said accusingly. "I only set up the systems. Using them is your responsibility," I said. But in that moment my mom wasn't listening. The anger inside her was looking for a target, and I was the easiest one. "Everything has been messed up since you came here," she said, her voice had risen. "It was messed up before I was here. I fixed it," I shot back. "Fixed it? Everything's worse," she said. She was wrong and we both knew it. But anger doesn't listen to reason. My dad was watching TV in the living room. He must have heard our voices, but he didn't intervene. He'd become invisible again. My mom and I were standing face to face in the kitchen. And in that moment, everything that had built up the years was about to surface. "Maybe you should take more responsibility," my mom said. "I'm already doing everything, your bills, your passwords, your systems," I shouted. It was the first time I'd raised my voice. "Aha, there it is, your true colors. You're admitting you're a burden to us," she said. And that sentence changed everything. "A burden," I said, my voice shaking. "Me a burden? I organized everything here, the systems you don't even know how to turn on a computer for. We were managing just fine before you," she said. "No, you weren't. Bills weren't getting paid, accounts were messed up, nothing was in order," I said. "Then why did you stay? Why didn't you go back to Seattle?" she yelled. And there it was, the real question. She didn't want me here. In that moment something broke inside me, not anger, clarity. It felt like I'd been waiting for this moment for years. "You're right," I said calmly. My mom was surprised. "What?" she said. "You're right, I should leave," I said. "Isn't that what you want?" She hesitated for a second, but then her face hardened. "Maybe that's for the best," she said. That night I packed my suitcase. I didn't cry because there was nothing left in me to cry about. I was just one last time dividing my life into pieces and fitting it into a bag. I called Maya. "Can I come?" I said. "The door's open," she replied without asking questions. Early the next morning I brought my bags to the door. My mom was in the kitchen, she didn't look at me. "I'm leaving," I said. "I can see that," she said, stirring her coffee. "Aren't you going to say anything?" I asked. She turned, looked at me, and that look said everything: disappointment, anger, and strangely relief. "Go," she said simply, and I went. Settling into Maya's place felt like a strange kind of freedom. I was sleeping on the couch, but it was there by my own choice. No one was telling me what to do. No one was judging my every move. The first week there was a strange silence inside me, like the calm after a storm. Was I sad? Yes, but at the same time I was relieved too. I kept job hunting, and 2 weeks later I found a full-time remote position. It was with a company in Seattle, but I could work from anywhere. The salary was enough for me to start anew. When I told Maya, she hugged me. "You deserve this," she said. And for the first time someone was defining me by my successes, not my failures. I found a studio apartment in Kansas City. It was small, but it was mine. My hands were shaking as I signed the lease, but from happiness, my own home, for the first time truly my own home. Maya and I went furniture shopping. Second-hand but clean, a couch, a table, a bed. As I placed each piece I felt like I was building something, my own life. I heard nothing from my mom or dad. They didn't call, didn't text, as if I'd never existed. A message came from Jason. "Emma, what happened?" he asked. I told him briefly. "I'll talk to Mom," he said. "No need," I replied, because I wasn't waiting for them to fix it anymore. I was building my own life. But then something unexpected happened. My phone started ringing. It was my dad's number. Once, twice, 3 times. Then a message: "Emma, urgent, call me." I ignored it. A few hours later he called again. This time I answered. "What is it?" I said, my voice cold. "We can't access the bank account," he said, panicked. "What do you mean you can't?" I replied. "The password isn't working, email won't open. We can't access anything," he said. In that moment I realized all the systems were linked to my email address. All the passwords were in the file I'd created, and even if they had the file, they didn't know how to use it. "I gave you the file," I said. "We found it, but the passwords don't work," he said. "They do work, you're probably entering them wrong," I replied. "Emma, please help," he said. There was desperation in his voice. And in that moment I had a choice to make. I could go back and fix everything. I could slip back into the old roles, make their lives easy again. But then what? Fall back into the same cycle, become invisible again, feel worthless again. "Dad, I'm not there anymore, you need to handle this yourselves," I said. "But Emma," he started. "Call a computer expert, I'm sure they'll sort it out," I said, and I hung up. My hands were shaking, but there was a strange strength inside me. For the first time in my life I'd said no, I wouldn't help, and the world didn't collapse. In the following days, chaos started in the family. Messages came from Jason. "Emma, Mom's really upset, bills aren't paid, they can't access accounts. What happened?" he asked. "You should ask them," I said. "I'm just trying to help," he replied. "I know, Jason, but I'm not their IT department anymore," I said. He went silent. A few days later my mom called. Seeing her number twisted something inside me, but I answered. "What do you want?" I said. "You need to help us," she sighed. In a commanding tone. "No, I don't," I replied. "Everything's messed up because of you," she said. "No, Mom, everything's messed up because you didn't want to learn anything. I showed you everything. You didn't learn," I said. "This was your responsibility," she said. "It wasn't. I'm your daughter, not your IT employee," I replied, and I hung up. That night I cried, but not from anger, from relief. It was like I'd dropped a burden I'd been carrying for years. Their problems were no longer my problems. Their chaos was no longer my responsibility. For the first time I felt like I belonged to myself. Weeks passed, I heard the news from afar. They'd hired a computer service, gone to the bank to pay bills, complained about how complicated everything was. And every time I heard it there was a strange feeling inside me. Not regret, not sadness either, just clarity. They'd seen how easy it wasn't. They'd seen the value of what I'd done, but they'd never admit it. Jason called one more time. "Emma, our family is falling apart," he said. "It was already falling apart, Jason. I just stopped being the glue," I replied. "Mom's really upset," he said. "Upset or angry?" I asked. He went silent because we both knew the answer. "Jason, I'm your sister, but I'm not going to be Mom's punching bag anymore. You weren't here. Every day, every hour, constant criticism, constant comparison, constantly not being enough. I was done. And I left, I said. I understand, he said quietly. And maybe he really did, or maybe he was just saying it. Months passed, my new job was going great, I'd even gotten a promotion. In my small but mine apartment, I fell asleep peacefully every evening. I met with Maya on weekends, talking about our dreams. I'd started volunteering to teach computer skills to seniors. And every time one of them said, "Thank you, you've been so helpful," I felt valuable. For the first time, truly valuable. One day a message came from Aunt Diane. "Emma, you need to talk to your mother," it said. "Why?" I asked. "Because she's your mother," she replied. "And that doesn't stop her from treating me badly," I wrote. No response came. There was still pain inside me. I wished they could be a family. But for that, they'd have to accept me for who I am, love me as I am. And they couldn't. To them, I was a problem to control. A fixed extra. The unsuccessful sister in Jason's shadow. But I no longer fit that definition. I was writing my own story. And in that story, I wasn't just someone in the background. I was the hero of my own life. One evening, sitting on the balcony watching the city, I remembered something Maya had said. "Emma, your family doesn't get to define you. You define yourself," she'd said. And she was right. My mom had called me a burden. But I wasn't a burden. I was a strong woman standing on her own 2 feet. I picked up my phone. I deleted my mom's number. My dad's too, Aunt Diane's as well. I wasn't cutting contact completely, but I was removing them from the center of my life. I wouldn't wait for their approval anymore. I wouldn't beg for their love. I knew my own worth, and that was enough. Months later, Jason sent an email. "Emma, I want to apologize for not being there for you back then. You were right. Mom was unfair to you. I hope one day we can talk," it said. I replied. "Jason, apology accepted. But right now I need to focus on my own life. Maybe one day we'll talk, but not now," I wrote. I meant it sincerely. I wasn't angry, I just wasn't ready. Now, a year later, I look at my life and feel something different inside. There's sadness, yes, because the bond with my family is broken, but there's also relief, freedom, a sense of being valued. I'm no longer living in anyone's shadow. I'm no longer trying to fit into anyone's expectations. If there's one thing you take from this story, know this: being helpful isn't the same as being valuable. You can completely manage someone's life, fix everything for them, solve every problem. But if they only value you for your function, you'll never truly be appreciated. And sometimes the strongest thing is to walk away, to protect yourself, and building your own life is more important than repairing someone else's. The burden label my mom threw at me now makes me smile, because the real burden was trying to hold their lives together, and when I let it go, I could finally breathe. If you're in a similar situation, where someone constantly sees you as inadequate, devalues you, judges you only by what you do, know this: you don't have to feel guilty for walking away. Protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. So today I'm sitting in my small but mine apartment, proud of my own achievements, and I no longer let anyone call me a burden, because I'm the architect of my own life, and this building is built on solid foundations.